Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us so far. We are going to give some time for people to join the panel, and then we're going to get started by introducing all of our panelists. I see that we've got some people internationally joining us as well, and that's awesome. Nathan, you're getting a lot of love from the chat. Did any of you have breakfast this morning? It was like a thread in the Slack. I was like, people are eating?
Danny, you should eat your breakfast. It's good for you.
Taco Bell is not breakfast, Danny. We're going to get started at 11:05. So thank you again, everyone who's joining us. I'm still seeing attendees joining. You have not missed anything. I also just want to say, if I'm looking to my right, that's me double checking the participant list and numbers. It's just the con of the dual screen. I'll try to sit like this so that it looks better. Leanne, I need you to stop laughing, because when you laugh, it makes me laugh. Yeah, I'm still gonna have to say no to the breakfast crunch wrap, Danny. We need a complete and balanced breakfast. Yeah. So for those of you who are in the chat, you can choose whether you want to send something to just panelists or panelists and attendees. And we do thank you for joining us. Where I am, it's 11 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I know that some of us, it's even earlier, and some of us, it's even later. So we appreciate everyone who was able to join us today. And again, to those who just joined, we're going to get started in another 2 minutes. We're giving people time to join the event. And then we'll start off with just a brief intro for our panelists. And for panelists, we're just going to ask you to say your name, the number of years that you've been in Quidditch, and the teams that you've been a part of. So, giving you a whole minute to think of your answer. I also agree that Taco Bell is great. I just question how balanced and strong it is for every meal. Liam, we already have a question from the audience as to where you're going right now. Oh, Frasier, I may need to consider kicking you from the entire event for that lie you've spewed. Chipotle is not better than Taco Bell at all. I see some people woke up and chose violence today. So this is our 10-second countdown, and we will start. Nathan, we're going to go to you first, then Leanne, and then Tate, and then I'll introduce myself. So you can go first, just introduce yourself, and let us know at minimum name, years in Quidditch, and the teams that you've been a part of.
Yeah, so I am Nathan Digman. I have been in Quidditch, I don't know how many years this is, but since the fall of 2013 was when I started. So I was at Marquette University is where I started, played, thanks Mary, yes, that is 7.5 years. So I played all 4 years at Marquette, retired when I graduated, came back to TCQC, Twin Cities Quidditch Club up in Minnesota. They kind of got me reinvigorated in the sport a little bit. And then after that, kind of half a season there, formed Boom Train, and that's where I've been ever since. And kind of throughout all of that, I've been a part of the Indianapolis Intensity program for all but, I believe, the first or 1 or 2 years. I've been a part of that, and then have been in leadership kind of throughout different roles, a lot of coaching, and then when I was at Marquette, it was beyond coaching as well.
Thanks. We're gonna pass it over to Leanne.
Hi, I'm in a car coming back from a car dealership, so I'll be in a home soon. My name is Leanne. I've been playing since my freshman year of college, so about 10 years now, which is super exciting. I played on a fake team called the Mattapan Muppets, a partially real team called the Boston Riot, which was Emerson's B team. Then I played on Emerson's not B team. Then I played on the Titans and the Riders, and I played and formed the Bosnian Bear Sharks about 3-ish years ago. And that's my journey. And now Tate, take it away.
Hi, my name is Tate K. I've been playing since my freshman year in 2016. I started at UT on what we call house teams. They're kind of like IM teams. They're not like the traveling teams that go around. And then the next season, I made our varsity team, and I've been playing. I played 3 years there. In between that, I also played with the MLQ Outlaws. And I'm also on the U.S. national team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Barnes. I actually started in spring of 2013. I didn't know that I started earlier than you, Nate. I made the mistake of starting my Quidditch journey at summer pickups in New York City as a beater, which starting your first few days beating against New York City beaters in that area was not great for starting out and trying to build confidence. But I went on to more officially play for the Macaulay Marauders in fall of that year. And then I continued on throughout college in quite a few different leadership roles, from executive board to captainship, and then eventually moved on to coaching. I played with the Rogues. I had a brief time practicing with reluctantly unaffiliated Quidditch for a little bit. I've also been on practice squad for New York Titans and held a manager role with the New York Titans. And then finally, in the most recent USQ season, I started the New York Nocturnes with Natasha Sador and Tyler Walker. So thank you again to all the panelists for joining us and all of the attendees who are here. So I think that we're just going to get straight into the questions, and we'll start off. I will read the question, and then I'll throw it to one of our panelists. And if anyone wants to chime in afterwards, you can do so. So the first question is going to be to Leanne, and it's, what does a healthy team culture mean to you?
I guess it depends if I'm thinking about college, MLQ, or community team. I think a lot about a healthy community team culture should be like one where we kind of like step back and say, like, we are adults, like doing this for fun. It's supposed to bring us joy. So one about making sure people feel included, but also like making sure people aren't feeling bought in, that you're checking in with them. I think a healthy team culture is one where people on the team have the same goal or are like willing to talk about it. Like if everyone on your team is trying to have fun, but you're like the one hardo who just like wants to win everything and you're like yelling at your teammates, like that doesn't really feel like a good culture to me. So I think a healthy team culture is one where everyone has like a shared commonality or a shared goal.
Thanks for that, Leanne. Nathan, do you want to chime in here? And if not, we'll pass it to Tate.
Yeah, I'd agree with what you said with like the common goal, Leanne. I was making notes on these questions ahead of time, and one of the things that I put was just people sharing a common mission. No matter what that is, it can be, just loving being around each other. Frankly, it can be a common mission, or it can be, trying to win a title, or it can be, whatever. Each team's going to kind of have whatever they're about, really. I think that's really, really important. And when you're all aligned in terms of what you want and what you're hoping to get out of that experience, then everybody can kind of work together to create the experience that you all want to have, and you can kind of hold each other accountable to that, right? So if you're trying to have a team where everybody is having fun and loving each other, well, if somebody's not vibing with that, you can kind of call them out on it, right? And say, hey, you're being not so fun today. Let's change it around. That's not what we're about. So I really agree with that point on everybody being on this kind of on the same mission.
I'll chime in now. I think that if you would have asked me this question maybe a year ago, I would have said something to the tone of like excellence, like team that's excellent, that is hardworking, like all driven for like winning and stuff like that. That's kind of how I came up at UT, like it's championship or bust for us. But kind of throughout the year, I think as we've noticed, and especially with Yara's excellent keynote yesterday, there's so much more that goes into what a healthy team culture is. And I've had to like rethink it completely. And to like echo, I wish I could like say a dissenting opinion or something different, but to just echo what Nathan and Leanne said is like the common goal of just whatever it is coming together, I think is super important, especially for college kids, because like everyone's got to be bought in first to be able to start figuring out all the other things. And I think a lot of young like college teams will think that, oh, we have this one goal of like winning a championship or just coming together to be a fun team, right? And then they think about all of the other things of like, we need to make sure that we're like inclusive, everyone's having fun, everyone's coming together, like we're building up our teammates, things like that. But they seem more like conditionary, like sub points, right? Whereas like now I'm starting to think, not starting to think, I think this now, that you have this common goal of like, we need to win a championship, but then there's these other points that come along with it that are like necessary, like absolutely necessary in terms of like, we need to be welcoming to all races, genders, creeds, all those kind of things. And making sure that, like no player is kind of left behind in terms of like who's being like coached well, who's getting playing time, things like that. And finding a way to mesh kind of all those things with like, for me, like I'm a very like competitive person when it comes to like Quidditch and things like that. And I want to win. And so now I think for me, I'm also like super interested to learn from the fellow panelists as to like what we can do to find a way to mesh those things healthy, like in a healthy way. And like in other things too, because I've been so like one-sided in terms of my thinking. So I think rethinking completely what team culture is in the first place is something that is a healthy team culture.
I think you all brought up a lot of great points. I'm definitely loving the conversations around like what a lot of people see as a seesaw, right? Between making sure that everyone's involved and feels well on the team and also going for competition and what's there. Personally, I agree a lot with what Leanne said, how like the type of team that you have can also shift the culture that you want to build. When I first joined Macaulay, like one of our things that we hold ourselves to is in our chant, we say Ohana means family and family means Macaulay. And when you join the team, it definitely was supposed to be an atmosphere that like everyone is just coming together to play. Like we're doing our best. We were definitely a very middle of the pack team and we were very new. And I remember in my first year, I had watched some stronger teams play and I tried to bring a strategy into practice. And I was asking Shinuku, who was coaching us, like if this was a good strategy. And he looked at me and he said, I don't know. Like I'm just doing my best here. 2 years older than you, and I've been playing this for only one more year. Like, I don't know like what the right idea is. And like, I think that that's really important because sometimes when people join teams, they look to their leadership to be perfect, and trying to take on that perfection can be too much. And something that I've thought about a lot since managing nocturnes that I've brought to practice is that like it shouldn't take so many spoons to play Quidditch. And what I mean when I say that is that spoons represent like our mental, social, and emotional energy. And like if our team and the way that we work in with it is starting to cost so much emotional and social and mental energy that it's becoming a burden to us, there's something wrong there that like we're not um, taking confrontation with. And that does lead us a little bit like to our second question, which is like if you have a person on your team who's creating a toxic environment, how would you safely and effectively rectify the situation? And you don't need to handle this question as like if it was a person, but also if it's a situation, right? Maybe it's a loss, maybe it's something falling through that you wanted to go to. Like, how do you confront that as a leader? We'll throw it to Tate first this time, then we'll go to Nathan and then Leanne.
Um, this for me, like this has always been something that's like difficult even when I've been in leadership because I'm a very non-confrontational person. I think it really is dependent on the situation. Um, you never really can go wrong with isolating a person, and definitely using like the strong suits of like your leadership team. The leadership team should never be just like one person. And so whether that be someone that is close to that person, that that person respects or really listens to, or coming together as a group, if coming to that person as a group is a better way to handle that situation. I think that isolating that person, talking to them, hearing them first too, right? Because like if you just come in and just tell them, no, that's bad, that's wrong, you're wrong, right? It's just human nature to just oppose that, right? Um, and I think they're very like it really depends, right? So like if it's someone that's being very belligerent and toxic, let's say like after a loss, and it's something that maybe you can handle in front of the team. Sometimes there are those situations where it's a learning thing because maybe other people are feeling the same way, just in a quiet, like they're not speaking up as much. um, those are things that you can, those are situations that you can maybe handle it that way. Or there's times where it's very toxic, it's very maybe hurtful behavior that you need to isolate them from everyone else so that it doesn't spread, and make sure that you try to find a way to come together with that person and like hear them out, but let them know that what they're doing is not okay, not going to be tolerated. Um, yeah.
I think about that stuff kind of, I'll take a step back before I jump in. What you said earlier, Tate, kind of got my wheels turning a little bit around how your experience was so competitive and you're kind of rethinking the culture element of that. And I had a similar experience where I think when I was early on in my coaching days, I was all in on like winning and whatnot. And that's changed. And what I've come to realize, and I guess I really want to make sure this point is clear, is I think success for teams on the field, the best way to accomplish that is as a byproduct of a culture in which everyone loves and cares for each other. And like, and it goes back to something Christian said with like experience and leadership dynamics, right? In Quidditch, so much of it is just how much time you spend playing and practicing and being involved and learning. And if you have that right culture, you know, people are going to show up. You want to have a situation where people love hanging out with each other so much that they absolutely want to be at practice, not just to get better, but to get better for themselves and for their teammates, and because they, you know, love being there, and it's like their favorite. I was gonna say 6 hours on a Saturday because that's what we do, but it doesn't have to be 6 hour practices. Favorite time of the week, because then you know that people are gonna want to be there. And with answering kind of the last question that Christian answered or asked with clicks and whatnot, a lot of that stuff comes from understanding and understanding each other's perspectives and where you're coming from and who you are, and getting to know each other as human beings, and again, caring for each other. If you as a leader are able to kind of try and create settings where like you're intentionally and proactively creating a setting where people can interact with different groups and with the larger group. And as you know, like an experience that I had with Boom Train is we had people from all these different college programs, you know, so many. And same thing with Intensity. We'd pull from like 8 different colleges. Well, there's naturally going to be like cliques. You're going to hang out with the people that you know, but you intentionally create a situation where XYZ person from, you know, Illinois is going to be interacting with somebody from Indiana and interacting with somebody from Wisconsin. And so you kind of cross those boundaries intentionally as a leader. And it's not always going to happen perfectly, but just, you know, you want to create situations where people aren't just falling into old habits and, you know, spiraling into, you know, whatever might be a toxic culture situation. Because I think in a lot of ways, like cliques in particular can be just like a threat to success, a threat to, you know, the team itself. Go ahead, Leanne.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I agree with a lot of what Nathan and Tate were saying. I think at the end of it, it all goes back to like what we said about what contributes to healthy culture. Like if you have a goal in place, if you have like expectations in place, and also like what they both said kind of like made my teacher heart, like, because I think a lot of it is just dealing with conflict, right? And you can't deal with conflict if you're coming at it from like a heated place, but rather if you come at it with like a listening, because no one's joining Quidditch because they want to be like the toxic person on the team or because they want to like rile stuff up. They're joining because it's fun and they like genuinely want to enjoy. So a very specific example to my team, like I really don't like when people yell at refs, and it like really annoys me. So like that's a behavior that I personally find toxic. And when I have people come onto the team, I'm like, you're on this team now, I'm sorry, like we're not yelling at refs. And make it fun if you need to. Like I will buy you a beer, well, or I will buy you a soda if you like can go an entire tournament without yelling at a ref. Like you can probably tell I'm a teacher, but I think like just if you have like a goal, if like the goal is like we are gonna like get hype for our team no matter what, and you have someone who's being toxic and is like talking down to your team, like it's a lot easier to be like, hey, like this is like as our team, like we don't do that, like cut it. And I think like you can have those conversations when everyone knows like what the mission of your team is or like what the objective is. It's a lot harder when you're just like on a team that doesn't really have a common goal to then be like, hey, I don't really like your vibe, because people are just gonna be like, well, that's my vibe, and I'm like trying to play Quidditch. So I think to the point of like having like a toxic person on the team, I think I agree. Like you pull them aside, you have a conversation, and I think like listen to them. Like especially, I mean, like I don't think I would ever like hold someone like if someone was mad after a game, I'd be like, all right, like take a breath and then be like, you're good. I think kind of what Nathan said also, like if you know the people on your team, like you can be like, I saw you were getting upset, try and be like proactive. Like I think it's really important if you're a team leader to be able to like read emotional states at least decent enough to like know if someone's getting upset before it happens. Oh yeah, Spike Seltzer is the way to go. And then I just had a quick point earlier, Christian, something that you were saying about like going to the New York pickups and stuff. And it made me think about another thing that I think is important for team culture, especially if you like have a variety in skills, is like talking to the people who, you know, are like the third, fourth on the line or whatever, and being like, hey, like I want you giving feedback. I want you chiming in. I want you like coaching the other people. I think if you can like tone down the egos a little bit and recognize that like everyone has a perspective and everyone can like contribute something. I think a lot of times toxicity and like frustration comes from people not feeling like they have a voice and feeling really frustrated. So if you give people outlets and avenues to like constantly be giving like advice or like talking about it, then when they have issues, you can have a more human conversation about it.
Thank you. I'm hearing a lot of empathy first, right? When you're having these conversations as a leadership member, meeting your team members where they are. Coming into leadership means that you need to care about all the people who are on your team and remembering that when you speak to them. So thank you a lot for those answers. We are going to move to the next question. Um, you've spoken a little bit to this in the last answer, but like when you have people join the team, how do you work against the formation of cliques? And like Nathan, you talked about pulling from a lot of different college teams. Leanne, Bosnian Bear Sharks literally pulled from 2 different geographic areas. And then Tate, like with UT's intramural program and then moving up to varsity and even people on different lines, like how do you deal with that? So Leanne, I actually wanted to start this one with you because I really want to hear about how you worked against that for Bosnia, even some people not even practicing together. And we'll move to Tate and then Nathan.
I want to start by saying, like, I was not the poster child for this, like in college. Like, I was the like clicks first like mentality. And it didn't have a like positive team culture. So if you want to talk about why clicks are bad, happy there. I think Bosnia benefited from like people in New York were like part of New York and part of NYU and Emerson, at least for the first year. And honestly, like we would go to tournaments and like introduce ourselves, and it kind of felt like a fantasy tournament for the first few times. And it was like, you're not gonna be a jerk at a fantasy tournament. You want to like get to know these people. This is like an MLQ panel. So I'm gonna like we had people who like had different interests, and people would like go spend time in those different interests. But I think I don't know. I think we just like the goal of Bosnia, the very first year at least, was like, let's have fun. And like, if you're not having fun, tell us you're not having fun. Like, we want to hear from you. And then it was also like, we were like, it's fun if we like, it's okay and it's fine if we lose, but it's like funnier if we win. So we kind of have this like chip on our shoulder mentality, which I think is like we were all like these scrappy underdogs who were just like chuckling about what was happening. And it was like, you weren't going to get mad at people on your team. And so, yeah, I think like, and I don't think Bosnia is necessarily perfect. And I don't think teams I've been on have been perfect. I think clicks always kind of happen, but I think like clicks themselves are like not great, but like, if you can get someone from each click to be like, we're going to go do this activity together, you're probably going to get the rest of the click to follow. Right. So like, I think it's about knowing the dynamics of your team and like working that into your favor. Like if you have a group of people who really enjoy doing something, like see if you can get 1 or 2 other people from like a different part to be like, let's do this. So I'm anti-clicks for the record. That's my pitch.
Yeah, I think just to speak to something that Leanne said, that, and I'm going to speak more so for college just because that's where I've had the most experience and been in leadership. Cliques are almost impossible, I think, to completely wipe out, because like for us, it's, you know, we're dealing with 18 to 22 year olds who like are on campus with people, like some of them are friends, some of them are meeting each other for the first times. It's just gonna like naturally happen where some people just enjoy spending time, the most time with certain people. And it's very difficult for, especially for like as student leadership, for you to tell people that that's bad and that's wrong and you shouldn't necessarily. But I think rather than, again, like I said earlier, telling someone that that's wrong, no, like words that like that, people are going to want to go against what you say, right? So rather than that, building up the team as a whole, like promoting teamwork, and like for me, it's something that in leadership groups that we've done in the past when we do team bonding, and like even to like conditioning at the end, like trying to switch up partners when we run gassers and things like that. Like I want everyone on the team to feel comfortable with everyone. I mean, obviously that's a very like tough goal, but like that's what I want, like ideally, right? And we want, like, honestly, the whole team to be like a quote unquote clique, right? Like that's the ultimate goal. Because like, again, that like what Nathan, I think it was Nathan was saying earlier, is like, when the team culture like all comes together is when you see the success on the field. And like, again, it's very difficult to like push against these things, right? But the more you build up your team and like promote teamwork and like I don't know. You get what I'm saying. I'm starting to repeat myself a little bit. I'll pass it to Nathan, but like not saying no to like cliques, but rather promoting the team itself is, I think, the best way to go about minimizing the toxicity of cliques.
Agree 100%. I don't have too much more to say other than, I think on that last piece, a good way to do that is just treat everybody, don't, as a leader, sometimes it can be tempting to treat people that you're particularly close to a certain way. You have to hold yourself accountable to holding everyone else accountable in the same ways. And I think when you do that, it can do a good job building up, that, how did you say it, Tate? Team as a clique idea, like the whole team is one clique, because that's the ultimate goal. Not that like, I don't know, you want to have such a good bond together that, you might have closer friend groups and things like that within, especially in college where, people probably have classes together and then other people, they only see each other at practice. You're going to have closer friend groups and stuff, but, finding ways to make people feel connected across the whole group is big.
Yeah, I think y'all talked about a lot of stuff that I've seen at the collegiate level, I've seen in MLQ, I've seen at the club level. I think that, like, I myself within Quidditch have had this like weirdly interesting experience where like I've met teams that like don't know me but have like heard about me, and I like have good experiences with them, whether through roughing or snitching or volunteering or just knowing someone random on the team. And I'm like able to like plug in and see like how different people operate. And I actually think that cliques can be super beneficial towards helping people join in the team. The problem is if cliques get exclusionary. Because if you have cliques on your team, but any person that like joins in folds into stuff, that's awesome. Like on Macaulay, we have some people that are like super into video games and board games and stuff. And like they love doing that. And then it's like after a practice, they would go back to the game room at the closest dorm and always play every weekend. And not everyone liked that. Not everyone joined in, but everyone was invited. And like that's really important. And then I also think that Nathan talked to something that's so important as leadership. You never want to give the impression that you as a leadership has created a clique that's going to affect the power that you have over players. And this comes into play with rostering decisions, with traveling decisions, even with like, if you are leaving leadership and giving recommendations on to who should come after you, like you do have to think about that as a leader, like the power that comes with your words. And I'm going to talk about this a lot in every panel that I'm on this weekend, but you never want to give or live what I like to call like the gray area of bias. You never want to make anyone in your team have to question, is there an inherent bias going into this decision that like I'm not being included on? Am I not being thought about here? So I hope that I answered the question for everyone in the audience. It's a complicated area with cliques. They can be positive, and you really want to watch out for any flags that they're becoming negative. We are going to switch into some questions that I'm seeing entered into the Q&A. But right before we get to that, if you had one tagline to represent your team's culture, what would it be? This one, Nathan, I'm going to go to you. I'll go first since it looked like you didn't like that. I'll go to you after me, then I'll go to Tate and then to Leanne. I definitely feel like I have lived my Quidditch life just based on Macaulay's motto, which again is Ohana means family and family means Macaulay. And for me, what that means is that every single person I meet in the Quidditch community, I want to treat just as well as like I treat my own family. And that comes from the things we've talked about here today, which is empathy first, trying to consider like their own thoughts and their own journey before they got to that moment when they met you. And I always want to give a great impression on someone like when I leave them, and I would want my team to do that as well. So that goes into like not yelling at referees, that goes into like not being belligerent and bad if we do lose a game, and also not being toxic winners if we win a game, right? Shaking hands, just like being great presences wherever we go.
Can I answer last? We have so many and I don't know which one to say.
T, are you willing to jump up and go ahead?
Yeah, I guess I'll bail him out. For me, I think the one word that I think of, like it's not even a tagline, is comfort. Um, for me specifically, I feel like I probably am not like the only one. I don't express this and I haven't heard this from anyone, but like for me, when I play Quidditch and like I'm with my team, is when I feel the most comfortable, not only just like socially, like just in general, but like as a person, which like I don't tie my person or like my image and personality into Quidditch, but it's just like that's when I feel like the most me that I've probably ever felt. And that feeling is something that is like I can't describe, and I want that for everyone that comes in to the team. I want everyone to feel that. And like I like I agree with you, like Christian, or like the like family is another one too. Um, whereas just like it's just it's so hard to describe too, like in a tagline. For me, it's such an emotional kind of like vibe kind of feel when like the team really feels together and like everyone is like having fun, like and it's unfortunate too because like I also say this like from a perspective of like um not knowing that people have maybe felt uncomfortable or not felt like it is a team. I come from the least marginalized group of people ever. You know, white, middle class, all I mean, like I could spell it out. I'm sorry. I, you get what I'm saying. And so like for me, think like that's kind of started to frame my thinking in that like if we haven't played Quidditch in like a year and I haven't been in leadership or like help with that team kind of culture stuff in a very long time. And so like that's kind of framed it for me as like how do I but like how do we promote and like get people to feel comfortable, because like that is like a universal feeling I think for everyone that like it's like it's just a breath like I just needed for like speaking. It's like a like an easy breath, like a relaxing breath. And like I don't know, I'm gonna stop talking because I'm starting to ramble again, but you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah. We'll move to Leanne and then round out with Nathan.
Just so everyone knows, there's like a 95% chance my phone dies soon. So sorry. It's been great. I realized I didn't say something earlier, but another way to build healthy team culture is chant. Just try it. Get everyone on the same page. Just like builds a lot of comfort and team spirit when you're all just saying the same thing. Had to plug that. We have two. One, obviously, chill vibes only. Sell it on fanny packs. Have a bunch if you want a discount. Let me know. And I think to that point, it's just like we are playing a sport that is genuinely fun, and like no matter what we do, if we're playing it in the park, someone's gonna say something. So like have fun with it and bring some levity to it, because at the end of the day, you're not playing because you want to get mad. So just be chill. And then the other one is don't be rude. And that is like I don't think I will ever be on a team that wins a sportsmanship award, but I really try, and I try and like tell my teammates like not to be rude to other teammates or refs, but there's like a absolutely you're not allowed to be rude to your teammates. Like don't be rude ever. There's no point. Like you're not going to be on a team with someone who's rude to you. You're not going to be on a team with someone who like belittles you or puts you down or tells you like that you're doing something wrong. Like absolutely not. But if you can, try. And our team's working on it. We're trying to be like less rude to other people. But chill vibes only, and then secondary, please don't be rude because it's not necessary and not needed.
Kudos to everybody else on this. I feel like when you guys are speaking, I just in my head I'm just like, amen. Multiple times as you were going there, Leanne, I was like, that's you really hit the nail on the head. Thanks for giving me a little extra time too. I appreciate it. Vulnerability. That's how I'm going to answer the question. And it means a lot of different things. So vulnerability to be your true self. That's kind of building off of what Tate had said in terms of comfort, right? So when you show up, you can be who you want to be. I think that's something that everybody wants. I could go into a rant about how, you know, you like play the role of the person that you're supposed to be in specific situations in life or whatever. But I think when you show up to Quidditch practice, Quidditch event, you just want to be able to be you, and express that. Also, from like a gameplay perspective, vulnerability to be open to feedback, be open to coaching, be open to hearing different ideas, things that you haven't heard before, or are just totally new, or maybe you disagree with. Being vulnerable with each other. I think that is, if I had to sum it up in a short way, I think that's what we're always trying to accomplish.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the Q&A. We have 7 questions, and I do want to try to get through as many of them as possible. So I think if we just have like one person answer, and then if people do add on, try to keep it to 10 seconds or less. So the first question that we're going to ask is, MLQ or perhaps other fusion style teams like Bosnia teams tend to create a unified team and attitude. What steps can be taken to prevent teams or players from going back to their previous cliques in their regular season club or college teams, or as they move to MLQ? I think, Leanne, I'll throw this question to you if you're still with us. Yeah, you are. Okay.
Yeah, I still am here for like a few more seconds. I think there's another question similar to that in the chat, so I'm going to try and answer them both. I think I know in the East Coast we have it a lot easier. Like, I think a big way of doing that is if you can get like the teams familiar with one another. Like, if you are in an MLQ team with a bunch of teams that in the regular season you are either going to practices with or scrimmaging or like having parties with, like building like that familiarity, that means when you go on to your other teams, like you see them as people. I don't think it's a secret that like when a lot of people join the Boston Riders, they're like, oh, like these people are humans and they're kind of nice. And you just don't know until you're on it. So I think
We're back.
the more you can have like joint scrimmages, or like, I think the pandemic's opened us to a world where you can have board game nights with people, and you can have Jeopardy nights with people. You can do stuff on Zoom to like.
I think we're losing Leanne a little bit, but I think she was talking a lot about.
Like
Okay.
we're all playing social out event for them.
Okay. So to those of you who are watching, she talked a lot about building joint scrimmages, bridging that culture between the teams that you're on, doing social events, and Leanne has rejoined us. But I think you, Leanne, was just re-summarizing what you said. The next question that we're going to move to is, with the USQ season, the season can be long and arduous. You practice for 8 months a year, get to nationals, maybe lose, and you have to do it all over again next season. How do you manage team culture and practices to prevent burnout and frustration if you have them year after year while still trying to build a team with a competitive edge? Nathan, I'd like to give this one to you because you've played in both the collegiate and club level, and you've worked in leadership between that and with MLQ.
It's hard. I think you gotta, I'll answer it more specifically from like the club perspective, because I think that like for working adults, it's just like really hard to keep people engaged for 8 months. You got to be flexible a little bit with people, and going back to what I said before, where if they want to, you want to create an environment where they absolutely want to show up, and it like that's their place where they can be vulnerable, to tie back, place where they really love being there. People aren't going to make everything. They're not going to be able to commit themselves to absolutely everything all the time, but that's something that you want people to be as bought into the competitiveness for however long as possible. But you have to keep in mind that at the end of the day, what really matters is who's there at the end, right? So I think on Boom Train the last couple of years, it's been more, well, let's kind of ease into things and take our time, and we don't need to be going crazy in September. We can work our way up there so that by April, everybody's ready to go.
Awesome. And I think you're really right with like checking in. On Macaulay, for instance, we have a town hall halfway through the year. That's just everyone can give open feedback anonymously in advance or just in person publicly. Um, for the next one, a lot of teams openly preach good culture, but it's hard to bring up issues, especially when you are shut down by the main leader of the program. It can make it more difficult for victims to be able to speak up further, even go through better avenues like USQ for the latter. How can we better educate Quidditch leadership as a whole? I think that this is something that we're seeing a lot more in the leadership development committee for USQ and then also with management and trainings for MLQ. But I don't think that organizations will ever be able to fix it. I don't think there's ever going to be enough training to have someone in a leadership role take a step back and really see how they're hurting someone on their team. Do any of you here want to volunteer and like talk a little bit more about what you think a leader could do on a team?
Go ahead, Tate.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I want to echo what Nathan said about vulnerability. It's something like, again, like I come from a place of not being perfect to this, and like potentially having been like part of the problem sometimes. So like it's a learning process for everyone. Um, but the vulnerability I think that leadership can show, right? Especially from like student leaders on college teams, like that's where it can be like really bad because um, you're dealing with young adults that maybe just aren't self-aware enough to know the harm that they're doing. But like preaching vulnerability from a leadership standpoint in terms of open to feedback, right? That's why I think if college teams can get a non-playing head coach, um, it helps a whole lot because uh, the student leaders don't have to be top tier level of leadership, right? Where they're the ones controlling everything or maybe making all of the decisions. Sometimes having the head coach can let them step back and be a student, be a part of the team for once, right? And so that's kind of what I've always believed in that, like with Texas, that I want to be a part of the team too. And I don't want to be like seen as just that leadership thing. And I think it's allowed me to be allowed teammates to be more open to coming to me in terms of like either calling me out on something, um, giving me feedback on where I need to improve, and they're not afraid to do it because I'm not the top, like I'm not the end all be all of all decisions, right? And I think like it also takes just effort. Like it's effort in like educating yourself and like knowing, I think like taking a step back and just knowing that like it's not something that you like should do, or it's not like something you'd like to do. It's like educating yourself and making sure you're better as a leader is something to do. Like it's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like it's you have to do it. Whether to be successful and just in general, but also just to like build a healthy team culture, like to have a fun group of people for that people want to come to every single week.
Just
Thank
to
you.
add like 2 seconds onto that,
Go
I
for it.
think leaders have a responsibility to create a relationship with each of the players on their team, where they feel like they can be honest to those leaders. And if you're missing that, uh, I think that's that's when, if something is wrong, that it can become something bigger. But if people are able to be honest with leaders on their team from the start, um, and the leaders are open to taking that feedback, then it's you're able to dissolve a lot of or solve whatever issues you're running into.
We are running short on time. I'm going to ask one other question, but for those who are left with their questions, we are going to move to a further conversation in the Slack channel. So make sure that you're joining that in the QuidCon Slack, hashtag Saturday 11 Team Culture. The last question I just want to ask, and I'll throw it to you, Nathan. How do you go about rescuing a team culture that has devolved too far?
That's a really hard question for like 1 minute. I wouldn't say that there's any, here's how you do it. There's not necessarily a formula. You got to start somewhere. I would say it all starts with relationships. We're all people at the end of the day. So you as a leader can start building relationships. If you're not a leader, build relationships with your teammates. And as people build those relationships, that can be the foundation for understanding and kind of breaking out of some potentially toxic habits or whatever is wrong with the team culture. And then the last point I would say that's really critical, and we've hit this really hard in this panel, but is common mission, common idea, common, like, what are you all working toward? Because if you understand each other and you're working towards the same thing, a lot of things are going to gel naturally.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists today. Thank you for the attendees. I hope that we've respected your time that you've taken out. We'll continue answering some questions in the Slack. And I hope that everyone has fun the rest of the day seeing our panels in QuidCon. Thank you for joining us.